I'm George Pearson, and these are just a few examples from some of the training videos I have here on YouTube. Now, when you're working with the training, following along the training, if you want to get the materials I used in the training, just go to the description down below and click on the link that's at the top of the description, and this will take you to a page where you can download the materials. Please subscribe, click the like button, and of course always share on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the video. In this 4th of July greeting card project done here inside of Photoshop Elements, we're making this kind of a patriotic look. Lots of graphic stuff in here, quite a few little tricky tricks on this one. We have a gradient map in the background here on this image. We have some swoopy shapes and of course some texturing, lettering, and so forth. Let's now see how this whole thing is done. The most difficult part actually of this whole project is this swoop in behind here. That's because you can't just draw this kind of nice smooth swoopy shape inside of Photoshop Elements. This would be a breeze if I was in Photoshop where I had the pen tool, or if I was in Illustrator or CorelDRAW, something like that, but it's difficult here. What we have to do is we have to bring in a shape which will give us this shape and then modify that shape. Now we have shapes luckily inside of Elements, and those are on the graphics right down here. And let me show you what I've done on this, and then I'll show you how we approach that. Let's just first hide everything else in here. I'll leave that bottom swoop on there just as an example, and I'll hide everything else. And here we go. I have this kind of a swoopy shape in here. It's not exactly the same size on this, and that's pretty close though. This is what I did. And if I zoom out a little bit here, you can see where this came from. So there's this big swoopy shape. Now it's a shape in here, and it's from the graphics, and just does kind of a nice big swoopy thing. If you look at the size here, it's about full size vertical, and then it's not quite double width on this to give me this swoopy kind of a shape in here. So let me show you how you do this. We'll start from scratch on this project and see how we go ahead and build this card look. Let me show you the card one last time here before we start from scratch. Just bring all the rest of our layers back in again, and there we go. There's the card. Okay, I'll get that out of the way. We'll start off with a brand new file. So File, New, Blank File. I have mine set at the default size 6x4 at 300 dpi. Choose OK. There we go. Here's our brand new file. Now before I go any further, I'm just going to bring up my Mount Rushmore photograph here. That's where the Washington picture came from. I'm going to drag that and just drop it in here, and then I'll hide that layer. We'll get back to that later. So it's now just inside of the file. Now if your file is looking like this, kind of docked in place, and you want to have it floating, just grab the name tag up there and drag it down. It will then float. If it doesn't float for you, then just go up to Edit, Preferences, and General, and make sure that these two checkboxes are checked. Allow floating documents and enable floating document window docking. And then you can move it around anywhere you want. It makes it much easier to work. Then I can either dock it if I want to, or I can see all my tools easily, or I can float it where I can get a much larger view by dragging the corner out to expand my size. Okay, let's put our swoop in first. That's the most important part of this whole project. I'll go over here to Graphics. I have my graphics set at 4 wide. You can just grab the side here and change the width on that. I have mine set at 4 wide. Now I'm inside Graphics and by Type, and we're looking at Shapes, and we're down quite a ways towards the bottom of our shapes in here. You can see there's all the different shapes. Way down towards the bottom there are these two kind of swoopy things. I want the one on the right. Double click on that, and that brings that in. I now want to rotate this around 90 degrees. So Image, Rotate. This is second set down here. Rotate right 90. There we go. So there's the basic swoop in here. We now can stretch this out to fit the size. Now as you recall, it's about the same height, but it's a bit wider. I'm just going to back out a little bit here so you can see that better. There we go. So if I pull this over to the right hand side, and if you watch the middle point, that middle point should be over about about there, about like that. So that's about the right size for this thing. And then just back it up until you have that nice swoop right in the middle there. That's what we're looking for, is that middle swoop. And choose OK. Now we need to clean this up, get rid of the excess stuff. Let's go back to our layers. There we go. And notice how this is a shape. See our little shape icon down there? So it's a vector graphic shape. I want to have this as a regular graphic. So right click on this and simplify layer. It's now a regular graphic. Okay, now we can begin to clean things up. First, I'm going to pull it down just a little bit here. There we go. And come just outside that bit there, and I'll give it a little bit of a twist. Just about 4 degrees or so in there. A little more of a swoop to it. There we go. That looks nice. You can adjust that amount of curve, whatever you like on your image, but I think this looks pretty good. Just a little bit more here. So maybe a total of about 8 or 9, I think. That gives a nice bit of a swoop in there. Okay, let's now clean out this other stuff. So we'll go over to the magic wand and just click on the top one, hit the delete key, and get rid of that. Click on the bottom one, hit the delete key, and get rid of that one as well. There we go. There's nicely cleaned up. Now there's still stuff off outside as well. I want to get rid of that outside stuff. So I'm going to use the crop tool here. And this is drag from the corner, top left, bottom right corner, like that. If you're already seeing these shapes or handles, just drag the handles out until they snap onto the edges. Like that, you can see it just snaps in place. Now sometimes you may not see your white background. If that's the case, just pull it up until you feel it snap. You can kind of see the little snap right there. Choose OK. That just trims off anything which is outside. So it's now just this one swoop. Okay, there we go. Now I want to have a second swoop on this. Let's just zoom in a bit. And that's easy enough. Grab your swoop, pull it up here, new layer. There's our new swoop. Now if I pull this up just a little bit and then come just outside one of our control handles, I can then rotate that around a little bit, just a touch, and pull it up. There we go. Now it doesn't quite fit on the right hand side. Just extend that out. Just stretch it out so it fits. And again, you can adjust the amounts here until you're happy with the look. I like having just a little bit of a space showing right over there on the right hand side. So there's a nice little kind of a swoopy effect in here. Now I had these things in red. That's easy to do. We'll just change our foreground color. Just drag up a right hand corner there. There's red. Go to the paint bucket and fill that with red, and then fill the second one with red as well. So they're now both red. Now on the top one, I'll be doing a layer style on this. We'll outline this in white just to give us a little white line right along that edge. So go up here to Layer, Layer Style, Style Settings, and Stroke. Click on the color box and pull the upper left hand corner. Gives you all white, and then just bring that size up a little bit. Kind of like that, maybe about 10 pixels is pretty good. And choose OK. Just gives us a nice little line there. Now again, you can move this. I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard and move it up just a little bit like that so I see the white line clear along the left hand side. It just adds a bit more of a design look in there. There's a white line across the top as well, of course. We just can't see it against the white background. Now I want to fill this background area here with blue. And I want to fill it from the bottom of the top edge up here. We'll then see this little light white line as well up here. So go to your top layer and grab the magic wand, click down here someplace. Okay, so there's our selection off of this layer. Let's now come down to the background layer and make a new layer above that layer. Here we go. This will be our blue layer. I'll just name this one. There we go. Let's now change our colors. Click on your red and just come up here, if you see here's our blue range, about a third of the way up into the blue range, maybe a little more. Just kind of a nice rich royal blue. And then come down on the right hand side, about a third of the way down, something right around here. And choose OK. There's our first blue. Now click on the background color swatch right there. Notice that I have this little eyedropper all of a sudden. Click on the foreground blue, and that sets that to blue. We can then move that over here. So instead of being down here, I just went kind of diagonally up and clicked up there. And that's our background. We're now going to fill this with this gradient. So use the gradient tool. That should be giving you foreground to background right there. Let's get rid of that. We'll be back to that in a minute. Okay, now make sure that you're on the radial gradient, and then click in the middle and drag just to the right hand side. There we go. Nice little subtle gradient in behind everything else, and that looks great. Okay, let's deselect that. So the bottom part is looking real nice. Now it's a bit too high, so I'm going to select just those 3 layers, hold the control key down and select those 3 layers, and then I'll use my keyboard, the mouse of my keyboard, just kind of pull this down a little bit until it's a good position, something around in here. You know, we'll play around with this once we get the Washington figure in. We can be a little bit more accurate on the positioning of these layers. Okay, now I want to have the exact same thing up here on the top, so I'm going to take these 3 layers and just deselect that. So first, second, and third, and drag these up to the new layer button that gives you a copy up here. So here's our originals and here's our copy. Let's now leave those selected and rotate that. So image, rotate, it's the bottom section, rotate layer 180. That just spins them around. We can now drag this up to the top. I'll put it right about like that. Looks like I need to come a little bit out on the size here. There we go. A little wider. So I just copied those and dragged them up on the top half of the picture. Okay, there's our basic swoops. We're now ready for our Washington, and we'll then put it in our kind of flying stars things. So let's do Washington first. Here's our Washington. Now he should be below this blue layer. So just drag that layer down below the blue layer. And I want to make a selection around Washington. Leave him the exact same size. His size is good. I'll be putting him about here. And I want a nice selection around that. So I'll move him over a little bit. Let's hide everything else. There we go. And let's zoom in, and I'll make sure our window is floating and put him out a little bit. Now this doesn't need to be a real super accurate outline. There are a couple ways to go on this. You know, either be pretty close to this, or it can, you know, come outside a little bit and have a little more rough. The different ways, they both work out well for this particular image. One thing you want to do though is you want to round off the shoulder right over here. So I'll start at the top of the head, and I'm just going to come in around, and using the polygonal lasso tool, I'll come around and do an outline like this around Washington. Now some of this I can't really see exactly what it's doing. It doesn't really matter. But over in here, I want to make sure I come in and make a nice little kind of a rounded bit like that. And then just come outside, off the bottom, over the right hand side, and come back in again. And now I can follow the shoulder here. This side is not as important. That's going to be going off of our picture anyway. And just kind of work your way up around. Don't click too quickly with this tool or it's going to collapse your selection. So make sure you just take a moment between each click and you'll be fine. And again, this one doesn't need to be super accurate for this particular project. There we go. So we have our selection. Let's now make a layer mask on this. Go up here to the layer mask button right there. Make a layer mask. There he is. He's nicely masked out. Okay. Back to our move tool. We can show everything else. So we can see his position. And I'll just put him right about here somewhere. It's pretty good. Okay, now I want to do that kind of interesting gradient look on him, and that's done with a gradient map. We'll be doing an adjustment layer above this layer. So layer, adjustment layer, gradient map right there. And I'll use the previous layer is a clipping mask. Just choose OK. That masks that into that image. And here's the gradient map. Now it automatically grabs the last gradient used. I don't want that one. If you open this up, see we have one right down here. This is one of the default ones. It's a blue to red to yellow. Click on that one. Now what the gradient map does is it takes the left side and maps that to the shadows, the mid area to the midtones, and the right area to the highlights. Now I don't want to have yellow, I want white over here. So click on the gradient itself, and that brings up the gradient editor. In here, you can click on the gradient color stop right there, and here's your color. Click here, drag upper left hand corner, and there's white. Now that we have this, we can adjust the positions. Notice I'm on the white color stop, and I have this little center stop here. If you grab that color midpoint, you can pull that over and adjust how the gradient behaves. So it's a lot more white and kind of quickly goes into red right there. Now make sure you don't click in here. You'll get a new stop like that. Just if that happens, just grab it and pull it straight down. It pulls it off. Click back on one of your two stops, and you can then move this around to get just the look that you want. Okay, there's the right hand side. Looks nice. Let's click on the red. Here's our left hand stop. I'll pull this one in towards the right side and back it out a little bit. So I'm trying to find just the right spot so I have some nice blues in the shadows, but not too blocky. I think about there looks pretty good. I like that. Choose OK. So there's our Washington with that gradient map. Again, mapping our chosen gradient right onto the values of that image. If you want to adjust that, just double click on the icon here. Brings this back up again. Click on the gradient, and you can then change or adjust your gradient right there. Okay, that part is done. Let's go back onto Washington himself. Look for that light blue outline, and you can then move him around to get your position exactly where you want that. You know, maybe you want to do a little bit of fine-tune adjustment once you have everything else in place. Okay, so far so good. Now let's bring in our shooting stars. Those are also graphics. So go over here to graphic. This time, let's change this to graphics and let it reset. There we go. Lots of stuff in here at the very bottom right now of the stack. If we scroll up, you see there's a lot of options in here to choose from. And there's the one that we're going to be using for this. Just double click on that. And it should have brought it in. I'll just drag it over. There we go. Okay, so here's our little stars. And I'll pull it right down bottom left-hand corner. Just kind of dock it to the corner. Too small, obviously. Grab the upper left-hand corner. Just drag that out so that the stars are coming up over Washington a little bit here. And choose OK. All right, I can now go back to our layers. There we go. There's that layer. I need to duplicate this twice so I have more stuff in here. So grab this layer, drag it up to the new layer button, which is right there. There it is. And I need to rotate that around to the right, but I want to rotate from the bottom right hand corner. Let me show you how that's done. I'm going to just move our image around a little bit here so we can see this. There we go. So I want to rotate. Go up to Image, Rotate. It's in the bottom section here, Free Rotate Layer. And that brings up our rotational tools. Now, right here, this allows you to choose which control handle it's rotating around from. Normally, it rotates from the center. So click on the bottom right-hand side. There we go. So it's now rotating from the bottom right. I can now grab the just outside the upper left here, and I can rotate that around. Just take it over just over here somewhere. So it looks nice. There we go, and choose OK. Let's now do that again. I'm going to pull this one to the top. I like that one on top better. There we go. And let's grab this one and duplicate it again. There we go. Let's now rotate this one opposite direction, but exactly the same thing. So Image, Rotate, free rotate, click on the bottom right corner so it rotates from that point, and then just outside and pull that down. Somewhere in there looks pretty good. And then I'll pull this one back up to the top again. So that's our top stars and other stars underneath. Okay, that looks real nice. Now on these big red stars, I want to have these big red stars in white. I'll leave the small red stars in red and the medium ones in blue and the big ones in white. And that's easy to do, but we're going to be first combining this whole thing together. So hold the control key down, click on each of your layers over here where the name is, right click, and let's merge those layers together. There we go. Now let's reset our colors. Click on the reset button and then invert those, and then grab the paint bucket and let's click inside this star here, make it white, click on that one, make it white, and click in that one there, make that one white. Okay, that looks better. There we go. Now I want to have an outline around this whole mess, and that's layer, layer style, style settings, stroke, and then click on the color icon and pull upper right hand corner for red, and let's just bring this up to about 10, a little bit of a red outline in there. Looks pretty good. All right, choose OK. That's set. Now let's duplicate this layer. Drag it up here to the new layer button. There it is. I want to rotate this one around 180 degrees. So image, rotate, and that's right down here, rotate layer 180. And then just drag that up upper left hand corner. There we go. And then grab the outside corner and pull that back up a bit so it's not quite as in the way. Okay, there it goes. There's all of our graphics now for our card. Now all we need is the text. Okay, let's do our 4th of July text first. And we'll grab our text tool. There's our type tool. I'm going to set this back to our default colors with black. Make sure it's black over here. And the font that I used for this, I'm just going to scroll up to it. It's a standard font. Almost everybody has this one, but anything similar will work out fine. Or choose any font that you like. That's fine. And I use this one right there, Brush Script Standard Medium, real basic typeface. And I did mine at 48 points, and it's centered. And I'll just click right here. Let's just type this in. Happy 4th of July. There we go. So there's the basic text. Now at this point you can change the size if you want to, adjust it, whatever else you feel like doing. But let's just get the basic look down. We'll then play around with our size a bit until we're happy with the look of this. Now there's two things I want to have on this. I want to have a white outline around it, and I want to have a gradient from red to blue inside of the text, and then a drop shadow, but the drop shadow outside of the white outline. A little bit tricky there. So let's make a copy of this. Let's drag up to our new layer button, just like that. There's our new layer. Let's now put our outline on this layer. And it's kind of hard to see here, so in order to see this, I'm going to come down here, maybe right here, and let's just put in a new layer at this point. And I'll just do something in a medium blue. This is just to give us something to work on. There we go. We'll be deleting that layer in just a moment. So let's go up here to our top text layer, and then layer style, style settings, stroke, and change the color to white. And let's bring that size up to about, oh, that looks kind of nice right there. So that's 16 on this one. Leave everything else the same and choose OK. So here's our nice outline. Now I want to have a drop shadow. If I did a drop shadow now, the drop shadow would be on the lettering and not over the white. So to do that, let's go up here, right click and simplify the layer, and then right click and simplify again. As soon as you no longer see the effect button on the right hand side, the little FX thing, once that's gone, this is now just one complete graphic. And I can now put a drop shadow on this thing. So we can see that. Layer, layer style, style settings, and drop shadow. And I'll bring that out a bit. And you can see now how the drop shadow is, it's in behind that white outline, and that's what I was looking for. So a couple of steps to get that. And there's something in here. You can adjust this once we have everything in place. Okay, let's now get rid of this blue. I'm just going to hide that blue layer. So far, so good. Now, how do we get that gradient inside of the lettering? If I select my lettering here, if I hold the Control key down, click on the icon, that selects the whole thing, including that white outline. So I don't want to do that. And that's why I saved that other layer back here. So let's hide this layer. Here's the original. Hold your Control key down, click on that. We now have the text selected. Let's now go back to our top layer, and our text is selected inside of that white outline. Okay, let's grab our gradient. So go over here and grab the gradient tool. And you can choose anything you want to on this. I'm going to go over here and just grab the same blue to red that we used before. Except this time I'm going to grab the yellow stop and just pull it off and leave just blue to red. And then I'll pull the red clear over here to the right hand side like that. And choose OK. Let's go to a linear gradient, and it's going to be going from first click to last click. So I'm going to click outside here and then drag across to the left. That gives us this kind of a look. So that's blue over to red. Or if you grab from this side and drag to the right, you get the red to blue. So either way you want. Or, top to bottom, you can do that as well. It's really up to you how you want to arrange your gradient. It just fills the gradient inside of whatever you have in your selection. But there it is. All right, let's just go ahead and deselect that now. And we'll play around with our size just a little bit on this after we have our last bit of text in, which comes right down below here. I can now hide our text layer. That's fine. And then for our last layer, I'm going to zoom in down below a little bit here. Let's just stretch this out so I can see this. There we go. I'll pull up so you can see our tools. So the last bit of text will be right down in here. Grab the type tool. Go back to our default colors. Invert those so white's in the foreground. That should set the white over here on your text tool as well. And on this one, I'll be coming down to Times New Roman, which is down towards the bottom of the list. I'm just using the wheel on my mouse. And we'll just roll way down. Okay, went just past it. Real standard in here. Times New Roman regular. And let's change the typeface here, type size to 36. And click in here. Make sure I can spell correctly today. There we go. Let freedom ring. I now want to rotate this around so that it fits into that swoop. It doesn't need to be exact, but it's basically on that swoop. And I'm going to hide these stars. We may move those stars in behind in a second. Let's just hide those, get those out of the way for a second. There we are. Now to do this, let's go back to our type tool and click into your type. And then come down here, this little button right there, Create Warped Text. And choose the arc. It actually warps the text like that. On horizontal, arc. Let's pull the bend around. And I can then kind of move this in here a little bit until I get where I want it. And I want to get that same kind of a bend in there. It is a little bit of back and forth to get this just right. You can do a little bit of horizontal warp if you want, or vertical warp. A lot of things to play with in here. I'm going to do a little bit of vertical, just a hair on that. Choose OK. And go back to the Move tool. Come just outside one of our control handles and rotate this a little bit. And see if we can get it to fit. Okay, I need more of a curve on that. Easy enough. Just go back to our curve and our warp tool. And a little more bend on this. You see it's a bit of a back and forth process. It would be nice if I could rotate this while I was in this tool, but I can't do that. So it's a matter of just playing around. Notice as I warp this, the the letters kind of splay out like that. That's why I did a little bit of this vertical distortion to try to realign those letters again, get them nicely vertical again. Okay, let's see how we're doing. And that's pretty good. Maybe a little more, just a little more warp on there. I think we've got it. Select that, back to our text tool, and just a little bit more. And that's pretty good right there. Okay, now I want to be able to see this, of course. We have that white lining behind there, so we're going to give this a little bit of a drop shadow. I'm going to do a little bit of a rotation here, just a touch. And that looks pretty good. So layer style settings, drop shadow. And I'll set this at 100 opacity so it's real solid, and bring the distance out just a little bit like that. And that looks pretty good. Choose OK. Okay, there is that bit. Now we just need to do a few little tweaks on this to get everything perfect. And you'll see how this whole project looks. I can actually bring that back in a little bit. Let's bring our stars back in. Okay, that's good. The text appears in front of the stars. I like the look of that. There's Let Freedom Ring. Here's our 4th of July text. Now at this point you can resize this a bit if you want to. Just grab the corner here and you can then stretch that until you like the look of that. And I think something around in here looks pretty good. It's filling up a lot of that space. It's not too small for that area. And choose OK. And there we go. There's our 4th of July card. And as you saw, lots of little tricky detail steps in here, but I think it works out pretty good. Now, last thing I'm looking at, I don't really like that star that close to George Washington's face. So I think I'm going to make the stars just a little bit smaller. Click on that and let's just back that down just a little bit, so it's off of that ring as well. And I think that's a better position for the stars. All right, there we go. There is our 4th of July card. Let's just now expand that up and see how this looks. Full size. There it is. Okay. Happy 4th of July card. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this